Hello students. So in this particular lecture today we will be going for the city and ecosystem theories. We will be covering ecosystem theories, some recap of lecture 9. I will also suggest you to go through that particular lecture, that will help us. Urban integration of various theories we will be discussing, then selected theories in detail, and there will be a good case example which will be covering all these theories, especially the detailed theories in this Medellin, River Parks and Green Corridor program from Colombia. So that's the way today's lecture has been designed. Ecosystem theories, if you remember, we discussed that they describe a scientific approach to studying lifespan development that emphasizes the interrelation of different development processes like cognitive, social, and biological. Do you remember these categories? We discussed the ecosystem theories in lecture 9, foundational, intermediate, system levels, advanced theories, and then integrative frameworks, which are combination of more than one theories. Foundational level basic theories. First one is energy flow theory, which helps to quantify the metabolic balance between energy input like electricity, food imports, and output like heat, emissions, waste. So, can you see that we are now trying to integrate the ecosystem theories which we discussed for natural ecosystem. Now we are bringing them for the urban context. Lindeman's trophic concept that clarifies the balance between consumption and regeneration, reinforcing urban food waste, nutrient circularity, and designing biophilic and resilient city system. Similarly, law of the minimum that serves as a diagnostic framework to pinpoint resource bottlenecks that determine urban resilience and adaptive capacities. Foundational level basic theories together they offer a foundational ecological lens for urban systems. Energy flow theory frames urban metabolism. Lindeman's concept structures urban trophic and resource cycles. Law of the minimum identifies critical limiting variables for sustainability and resilience. This integration builds the theoretical base for advancing urban ecosystem balance, linking natural principles to socio-technical urban design and policy. Now we come for the next group of ecosystem theories, which are having intermediate complexity. And again, we will look from the urban context. So, succession theory in the urban ecological context is the succession which guides nature based regeneration, promoting resilient landscapes that recover from disturbance while enriching biodiversity and ecosystem services. Carrying capacity helps to assess urban resilience thresholds, guiding infrastructure development, zoning, and environmental compliance for sustainable urban ecosystems. Whereas the intermediate disturbance hypothesis explains how dynamic equilibrium between disturbance and recovery can be optimized in urban design, balancing stability with renewal to maintain ecological and social resilience. So, together, these intermediate complexity theories explain urban ecosystem dynamics through time and stress. Succession theory guides us temporal evolution and regeneration aspect. Carrying capacity defines sustainability limits and thresholds, and intermediate disturbance hypothesis optimizes resilience through control variability. Combined, they frame cities as adaptive, evolving systems where ecological processes, urban growth, and resilience interact continuously. Now we will come to the system level theories basket. These theories integrate energy, matter, and feedback loop in more complex ways and look at internal regulation and energy efficiency in whole ecosystem. Two theories will be discussing: homeostatic theory, which frames cities as self-regulating socio-ecological system and explains urban resilience mechanism such as adaptive governance and feedback informed planning. And also it connects to urban climate control, UHI mitigation, blue-green infrastructure balance. If you remember in our lecture 9, we actually discussed, when we discussed the system level theories, the importance of this feedback, the network. So please remember that. In the second theory, thermodynamics, max power principle, we can understand that this interprets the urban sustainability as energy optimization, not just conservation. Highlights the trade off between efficiency and resilience, informs design of urban energy networks, smart infrastructure, and sustainable consumption patterns. If we take this thermodynamics maximum power principle for detailed discussion, we can see that Alfred Lotka in 1922 first discussed it, and it was extensively applied to ecology by Howard Odum later on. Overview of this particular thermodynamics principle proposes that systems that survive and prevail are those that maximize their useful energy capture and transformation or power. So, there is a key seed for survival. Howard Odum observed that mature ecosystems tend to organize themselves to maximize this energy throughput, even at the expense of pure efficiency. It suggests that through evolutionary time, ecosystems develop structures that increase their usable energy flow. So, what we can learn that for survival, the tactics is not always the efficiency. It is always better to look at the maximizing useful energy capture. Key concept: maximum power, the principle that systems evolve to maximize the rate of useful energy transformation. Embodied energy, a concept of embodied energy accounts for all the energy required to generate a product or service. Self-organization, the spontaneous organization of systems to optimize energy use. Power efficiency trade-offs, the balance between the rate of energy transformation and its efficiency. The application of this theory, we can find that analyzing ecological systems and valuing ecosystem services. It is also applied in designing renewable energy systems for optimal performance. And it helps in assessing sustainability through embodied energy analysis of cities and industries. So, what are the good examples for these thermodynamics principles? Evolution of forest canopy structures to optimize light capture. Odum studies on coastal wetlands that had showed that how long-term succession leads to the accumulation of energy storing components to maximize the total power flow of the system. We can also find a good example from river networks that form along paths of maximum energy dissipation. So, the nature has also given us so interesting examples. Together, these system level theories provide a macro lens to interpret urban ecosystem as dynamic, self-regulating, energy transforming systems. Homeostatic theory maintains the stability through feedback and resilience under stress. Thermodynamics, the max power principle, discusses governing energy optimization and systemic evolution. Combined, they advance an understanding of cities as open, adaptive system seeking balanced energy throughput and sustainable equilibrium, fundamental for resilience-oriented urban planning and governance. So, this learning can really help us for better planning. Now we will be coming for the fourth group of theories, that's the advanced theories, which are more recent and complex, often integrating ecology with climate science, systems theory, and non-equilibrium dynamics. These basket of theories that deal with uncertainty, adaptation, regime shifts, vulnerability under global pressure, and services to humans. So we'll be discussing four different theories of under this particular basket. First one is the resilience theory, and this I will discuss also in details later on. What this theory does, it encourages cities to evolve through adaptive pathways, not by avoiding shocks, but by reorganizing creatively after them. That's a very interesting theory. It reframes urban planning as a living, learning process rather than static control. And it moves cities beyond resistance to adaptive transformation, core to climate resilient planning. The next theory under the advanced theories group is panarchy theory. If you remember, we said pan and archy, the rule, reveals that resilience or collapse at one level influences others, emphasizing nested feedbacks and timing of interventions. It helps synchronize policies across governance layers to maintain system coherence. This theory encourages multi scale governance and policies that leverage cross level learning and renewal rather than suppressing change. The third theory is alternative stable states. This connects the thresholds, path dependency, and transformation and highlights the danger of tipping points in urban development. So, it's very important because regime shift will happen if we are not getting the alarms appropriately. Loss of ecosystem services, urban heat escalation or socioeconomic collapse, and the need for early warning indicators. That is the premise which alternative stable states theory deals with. The last theory we will be discussing under the basket of advanced theory is the ecosystem services, which shift the perception of urban green and blue assets from aesthetic add ons to core service providers, embedding ecological performance into economic and social planning decisions. So, thus, it positions urban nature as infrastructure, central to sustainable growth and resilience. As I have discussed earlier, that I will be discussing resilience theory in details. This is the theory which was developed by C.S. Holing in 1973. It describes an ecosystem's capacity to absorb disturbances like storms, fires, or human impacts, but still maintains its essential functions and structure. It is distinct from simple stability as it focuses on the ability of a system to cope with shocks up to a certain threshold. If this threshold is crossed, the system can undergo a regime shift to a new, different stable state. This theory also introduces the adaptive cycle, which describes how systems move through phases of growth, rigidity, and the climax, then collapse and renewal. Key concepts under this theory: ecological resilience versus engineering resilience, a distinction between a system's ability to persist in the face of change versus its ability to return to an equilibrium state. The second concept, which we also discussed as a theory, alternative stable states, the idea that a system can exist in multiple stable configurations. Adaptive cycle, the four phases of exploitation, conservation, release, and reorganization that describe a system's dynamics over time. And the last concept is the tipping point. Critical points where a system shifts to a new state. Application wise, resilience theory could find its application in managing ecosystems and conservation planning under uncertain conditions, such as climate change. Planning for natural disaster preparedness and recovery, and designing urban environments to be more resilient to shocks are other areas of application. We can see the examples like fire adapted grasslands and forests that cycle through burn and recovery phases. The Sundarbans mangrove forest, which is an example of a resilient ecosystem that absorbs storm surges from cyclones. Coral reefs that shift from a coral dominated state to an algae dominated one, demonstrating a loss of resilience, is also another side of the example. So, together, these advanced theories frame cities as complex adaptive socio-ecological systems. And the system that can absorb and reorganize, as resilience theory discussed, evolve through cross-scale feedbacks, the panarchy theory propagates, face potential regime shifts, alternative stable states, rely on ecosystem derived benefits, the ecosystem services. So they collectively strengthen system thinking in urban sustainability, enabling proactive governance and adaptive design that aligns ecological integrity with urban functionality. The last one is the integrative frameworks, socio-ecological systems and earth system science. These theories often combine ecology with other disciplines such as economics, sociology, and computer science. Bridges ecology, society, and space-time scales. We'll be discussing again some of the theories under this framework like socio-ecological system. This helps understand how urban governance, infrastructure, and community adaptation influence ecological outcomes. These socio-ecological systems actually provide a lens for designing integrated urban resilience strategies that account for both biophysical limits and socio-institutional capacities. This promotes participatory and adaptive urban planning. The other two theories which we will be discussing, the first one is meta-community and landscape ecology theories. These are also two theories combined together for discussion. In the urban context, we can see that they support green infrastructure planning and urban biodiversity corridors. These theories can guide us for spatial configuration of ecological elements for habitat connectivity and resilience. Like if there is a worm, earthworm, how that earthworm can move from one place to the another place. This guidance can come through these theories. It encourages multi-scale urban design, integrating landscape form, mobility, and ecological health. And the last theory under this integrative frameworks, that is critical transition theory. This enables anticipatory resilience planning, informs adaptive policy design to prevent undesirable regime shift, and links with climate risk management and transformative adaptation strategies. So you could see combination of resilience theory as well as we can see the policy, the social and the technical part as well in this critical transition theory. I have selected the socio-ecological system theory for detailed discussion. It was developed by Elinor Ostrom and later on Borges and Folke. They also worked a lot in this particular theory. This theory views human society and ecosystems as deeply interconnected, co-evolving and interdependent systems. And this posits the humans are not separate from nature, they are part of it. The theory emphasizes the feedback loops and linkages between social components like institutions, cultures, and ecological components like nutrient cycles, biodiversity. And the core idea of this theory is that sustainable resource management requires integrating human behavior as well as the ecosystem dynamics. We can see the key concepts in this theory like socio-ecological systems framework, an integrated framework for analyzing linked social and ecological subsystems. Then common pool resource management, the governance of shared resources through collective action and institutional arrangements. Polycentric governance, multiple centers of authority operating at different scales. That is also another very important concept in this socio-ecological systems theory. And the last concept will be discussed, that is human environment feedback, the two-way interactions between social and ecological components, which again and again we are discussing in this integrated frameworks. Let us see the application potential of the socio-ecological system theory, managing natural resources as well as the community-based conservation initiatives such as India's joint forest management programs. We can also apply this theory for planning for urban sustainability and developing green infrastructure. Integrating traditional ecological knowledge into resource management can be another application area of this theory. Now, let us go for some good examples where this theory has been applied. The management of shared resources in Swiss alpine pastures or Indonesian irrigation system. We can also find that community-based management of Maine's lobster fisheries. In India, the theory has been applied to the co-management of urban lakes in Bengaluru, where citizens and government collaborate to improve sustainability. Another theory which we will be discussing in detail is one of the most interesting and effective theory for us, the urban designer and planner, that is landscape ecology theory. It has been developed by Richard Foreman and Michael Gordon in 1986. This theory focuses on how spatial patterns influence ecological processes. Landscape ecology theory models landscapes as a mosaic of patches, habitat fragments, corridors, that is the linkage, and a surrounding matrix, that's the background. So there is a background, there are the fragments, and there will be the linkage. So patch, corridor, and matrix. This is the very basic of this landscape ecology theory. The theory examines how the size, shape, and arrangement of these elements affect the flow of organisms, energy, and materials. So that is very basic of ecosystem function. That is very basic of ecosystem process. Key concepts which we need to discuss under this landscape ecology theory. The very first one is the patch corridor matrix model. It's a framework for understanding landscape structure and function. Landscape fragmentation, the subdivision of habitats that can lead to smaller, more isolated patches. Then the age effects, the change in environmental condition and species composition at the boundary of habitat patches and how they influence the inner part. Meta-community dynamics, how local communities are connected through the dispersal of species. And the last concept which will be discussed is the spatial heterogeneity, the importance of spatial patterns and scale-dependent processes. The application wise, we can look at designing conservation corridors and networks for protected areas, planning for urban green infrastructures and green belts, assessing the impacts of habitat fragmentation on biodiversity, and developing landscape restoration plans. Let us go for some examples also. India's elephant corridors are strips of habitat. India's elephant corridors are strips of habitat that allow elephants to move safely between protected areas. Urban green spaces and river network that serve as corridors for species in cities. The Western Ghat biodiversity hotspots where patch matrix models are used to preserve species. So these are very good examples of this landscape ecology theory and their application on ground. Together, these integrative frameworks provide a macro synthesis of ecology, space, and governance in urban systems, like socio-ecological system framework unites human nature co-adaptation, meta-community and landscape ecology explains the spatial ecological connectivity, and critical transitions theory identifies thresholds and transformation pathways. In combination, they represent urban ecosystem thinking at its most integrative level, connecting ecological processes, spatial networks, and adaptive governance to build resilient and regenerative cities. So, now I will come to a particular case example, and this example will be also an opportunity to see that how different theories can merge in one particular program. So, this case has been selected from Columbia, Medellin City, Medellin River Parks and Green Corridor program. The urban challenges city was facing was intense urban heat island conditions, heat stress in transport corridors, frequent riverine flooding along the Medellin River, severe habitat fragmentation reducing species movement, as well as the social exclusion and unsafe public spaces. So, this Medellin River Parks and Green Corridors program in Colombia had major targets. It's a major urban ecological initiative designed to transform the city's river and road spaces into interconnected green and blue corridors that integrate nature into the urban fabric. And it's such a successful example. The Green Corridor programs that was launched in 2016 expanded greenery along more than 20 kilometers of roads and waterways by planting millions of trees and plants, which has led to a significant cooling effect. And it has been measured that it has reduced the average air temperature by about 3.5 degrees Celsius. What a good success! And improved air quality by reducing particulate matter levels. It promotes biodiversity, lowers energy use for cooling, and provides health benefits, including reduced respiratory infections. The program also includes local community engagement, employment training for vulnerable populations as gardeners and others, and has been recognized internationally with awards for its innovative use of nature in urban design. So, this is that river and the Medellin River and the green connects you can see, which is also coming inside the city. And in the left hand side, you can see the images. We will check this particular case with the theories one by one. First one is the resilience theory. We can find its application in adaptive cycle thinking, release to reorganization to growth. Replaced grey infrastructure with multifunctional green corridors, enhance absorptive plus adaptive capacity against heat and flooding, reduce systemic vulnerability through decentralized cooling nodes, enable recovery pathways rather than static resistance, which you can measure through the surface temperature reduction, peak runoff retention capacity, and the post-event recovery time. Next theory we will check against this case is the socio-ecological systems theory. Co-governed by municipality, botanical garden and citizen stewards in this particular program. Community participation influences the ecological maintenance. Stewardship groups monitor water quality, pruning, invasive controls, which is very important to maintain. Socio-ecological feedback, like increased public use of improved safety, leads to more stewardship, resulting in better ecological condition. How we can measure them? We can measure them through citizen participation index, water quality metrics, chlorophyll A or BOD COD, stewardship event frequency. So those are the different approaches through which you can measure whether this socio-ecological systems theory are successfully present there or not. Landscape ecology theory, applied patch corridor matrix spatial design in this case. I think that's the image which I shared with you. It is directly telling us 30 plus corridors link parks, riparian strips, and street vegetation. Improved functional connectivity for birds, pollinators, seed dispersers, reduced fragmentation and edge effect stress, and the spatial heterogeneity disperses heat stress across the matrix. It can be measured through patch connectivity indices, FACSTAT, CI, age to core ratio changes, species richness per transect. So I hope you enjoyed this particular case study. So now let us go for the summary of today's class. We first had a recap of ecosystem theories from our second week lectures. Then urban integration of various theories, we looked at it and we discussed some certain selected theories in detail and the case example where we brought these theories back, as well as we could learn that such a positive program can really exist and implemented. So with this, let us go for the references. Thank you.